The slasher boom of the 80s saw many different franchises spawn from their first outings, but for every Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, there was a Harry Warden or a Cropsey who just never managed to get a sequel, despite their strong showings. Whether it was just because of the sheer amount of slashers at the time, or the general lack of interest, many were simply one and done. So today, we're going to put a spotlight on one that doesn't get talked about enough. Join us on Real Slashers as we get into the often forgotten, but wonderfully gory slasher, the Prowler.
I hope you don't hate me for leaving you this way, but perhaps when the war is over, we can be friends again.
The Prowler might just have the most batshit intro to a slasher film ever. We open on this old-timey video showing a bunch of veterans coming home from war and reuniting with their loved ones. I'm sure that many people had to check their VHS tapes back in the day just to make sure that they were actually watching a slasher and not some propaganda piece. We then go to this lady Rosemary writing a Dear John letter to her boyfriend. Oh no, I think I see where this is going. An important thing to note is the rose that she writes into her signature. Long having forgotten her vet ex, Rosemary then attends her school dance with her new boyfriend. They decide to do what any horny teenagers do and head off for some privacy. But instead, they're attacked and impaled by a mysterious man wearing an army uniform. On the corpses, he leaves a rose, with all signs pointing to him being the bereaved ex-boyfriend. It's crazy and feels so unlike any other slasher at the time. The only other one I can think to compare it to is My Bloody Valentine, with its hazy, dreamlike opening. But even then, it feels like a scene from an entirely different movie. Once we go to the present day, we're introduced to our lead, Pam McDonald. She's making preparations for the first school dance being held since the murders. Wait a minute, yeah, now this is exactly like My Bloody Valentine. But the movie makes awkward decision after awkward decision. We find out that some mysterious killer cut up a guy and stole his car, seemingly on his way to their town. So why aren't we seeing this exactly? Why are the characters simply discussing it? Especially when what they're describing seems like it'd be a pretty cool slasher scene.
Somebody robbed a market up near Columbus. Cut some kid up and took his car.
Feels like a missed opportunity. Joseph Zito is often known as the director of Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. Though I specifically remember him as the guy that made Judy Aronson perform this scene in the blistering cold until Jason himself, Ted White, stepped in and said enough is enough. Because of that, Zito has a bit of a reputation in the horror world. But I will say that I really enjoy some of the stuff he does here. We get some long takes as we follow characters through dimly lit areas. That helps to add to the tension and shows that the production is full of more than just amateurs. But unfortunately, the pacing can leave a lot to be desired. Now, the Prowler is mostly set up as a mystery, the whodunit kind of slasher, with the identity of the killer not being revealed until the very end. We get the usual cast of suspects, with the primary ones being the boyfriend and the original killer from 1945. Pam is a fairly forgettable lead and fails to really convey any kind of strength that can get the audience on her side. Instead, she's just a damsel in distress for most of the movie. Though she does get a big moment when the killer is finally revealed to be Sheriff Frazier, and she takes off his head with a shotgun. Since every horror film at the time seemed to need a big shock at the end, Pam then returns home from the events and discovers the bodies of her friends. But oh no, one of them comes to life and grabs her. But don't worry, that's just a hallucination. Pam is just crazy. Yeah. So talk about a very happy ending.
Damn right it's my fishing trip. And if you bother me about anything, Bill, I'll kick your ass right across the state line, okay?
The Prowler may not have the reputation that some of his contemporaries have, but he certainly has managed quite the impressive resume of kills. Suited up in an old army uniform and leather gloves, they do a pretty good job of hiding his face without giving him a legit mask. While his signature weapon is a pitchfork, he doesn't just stick to that. He even utilizes a sawed-off shotgun. I think my favorite of the whole film is when he sticks a knife through this guy's head, who proceeds to just struggle and struggle with his eyes finally going white. It's a great visual. In fact, one of the primary attributes of the kills here are how long they last. There's no immediate death involved. These victims have got some prolonged suffering going on, and as such, it can get a little uncomfortable at times. There's a hilarious red herring where they have a wheelchair-bound Major Chatham as a potential suspect, which I just love the idea of this man being the killer. It's eventually revealed that he's actually Rosemary's father, and that the person who killed his daughter is likely the same person currently on a rampage. The fact that Tom Savini considers this to be his best work when the man has a resume that includes Friday the 13th and The Burning is really saying something. And unfortunately, given their extremely violent nature, we're not able to show you much of them here. But trust me, Savini certainly made sure to put his best foot forward when it came to these grisly murders.
I'm gonna go cool off, Paul. When you get tired of hugging the toilet, you can find me up at Garner's pool.
Characters in slasher movies tend to make some pretty stupid decisions, whether it's investigating a strange noise or trying their damnedest to find their lost friend. It's pretty much a staple. So the idea of going swimming while a killer is on the loose seems pretty par for the course. But what I love is that Lisa goes from trying to go to the bathroom to leaving the dance to swimming in the pool. Is she using the pool as a toilet? Either way, she swims around a bit, and when she finally tries to get out, the killer full-on yeets her in the face. And this is when we're introduced to the killer's most interesting power, making women lose their ability to swim. At least that's only what I can assume, because otherwise I have no idea why Lisa is writhing around like this. Just swim to the other side. The scene is shot like Lisa has no idea where the Prowler is, despite, the fact that she's in a pool. It's got pretty good line of sights, but instead, he's somehow able to get into the pool without her knowledge and sneak up on her. He slits her throat and we get a phenomenal shot of the red blood mixing with the blue water. It is absolutely glorious.
They caught the man who robbed the store 3 hours ago. He couldn't have killed Lisa.
That was Rose Chatham's grave we found, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Mark, the same man who killed her, killed Lisa.
The Prowler released in Louisville, Kentucky on June 26, 1981, with releases to follow in Dayton, Ohio, Kansas City, Missouri, and finally in Los Angeles, California. Despite the slasher boom at the time, the movie would earn less than $1 million at the box office, making it the 135th most successful film of the year. So, not too great. Hilariously enough, and for reasons completely unknown, the film was actually released in South Carolina under the name Pitchfork Massacre, nearly 3 years after its original release. It appears to have been done without the distributor's knowledge, though I'm very curious as to what the end game was here. See if maybe the film could have a second life under a new name? Or maybe just some guy trying to make a quick buck with no one else being the wiser? I don't know. We unfortunately never got to see any sequels for The Prowler, and instead it has mostly been relegated to cult status. While rumors of a remake have flourished for years, this remains one of the untouched slashers from the era. Hell, The Prowler hasn't even managed to get a cool Scream Factory or Arrow Video release. So there's clearly some more love that needs to be heaped onto this movie. I know I'm doing my part. Because while it may not be to the level of some of its counterparts, it feels unique and entertains throughout. Just remember, ladies, if you're ever going to write your deployed love a Dear John letter, just make sure he's not a psychopath first.